I'm John Bennett, Roll Call's White House Correspondent. Earlier this week, President Trump went to the Capitol and delivered his first address to a joint session of Congress and got widespread praise, not just from Republicans, but also Democrats who kind of grudgingly forced to acknowledge that he looked and sounded very presidential. So coming out of the speech and going in to next week, we do see signs again, as we reported last Friday, of a White House somewhat starting to normalize. The days are starting to be a little more controlled. They're more on message. Keep an eye out for any growing discomfort or just outright disagreement among Republican House members and senators over what is, even though it doesn't usually get reported this way, a very big government agenda from this Republican president. It's quite a break from Republican policy from the last decades, where they want smaller government and federal cuts. You can just look at Trump wants a total of around $85 to $90 billion more for defense. He has talked about an infrastructure plan that could be as large as $1 trillion. Of course, that would be spread out, but that's a huge price tag. His border wall and border security plan, which would call for more federal agents. Federal employees cost a lot of money, so that is a huge expenditure he's talking about. He wants to protect entitlement programs. That is more of a Democratic policy. And when you add all of those things up, what he and his budget director, Mick Mulvaney, have talked about are offsetting that new spending with other federal spending cuts. Offsets are maybe the hardest thing for Congress to negotiate. And even some Republicans have already started pushing back on that idea, because Republicans do care about a fair number of programs that apparently the Trump folks are at least eyeing as offsets. Number two, where is the legislation? The White House has not sent a single item up to the Hill for lawmakers to at least begin crafting their own plans using the White House legislation as a starting point, or simply pushing it through with minor to medium-sized modifications along the way. At this point in Obama's first term, he had already signed the economic stimulus. That, to be fair to the Trump administration, that was an emergency situation. So two better barometers would be President George W. Bush in 2001 had already proposed in great detail a 10-year, $1.6 trillion tax cut. And at this point in his first term, President Clinton had already signed the Family and Medical Leave Act. The White House says Trump and his aides are continuing to work with congressional Republicans. There was a lunch at the White House on Wednesday to continue talking about next steps for his agenda. But his agenda and congressional Republicans' agenda, they're not the same thing.